Hi, this is Sarah from House Copper, and today I'm going to show you how to use a grooving machine, which is, if you can see it, this machine right here behind me. It is basically a machine that sets down a crimp seam in metal smithing. After you would use the rollers, which is, I'll show you again, but it just, rolls sheet metal into a cylinder. You will use the brake press, which also is still like the rollers used by tinsmiths, HVAC manufacturers today. But I use the brake to prepare the edges of a piece of tinware or copperware to take the grooving machine. So this is the crimp seam, which is the type of seam in metalworking where you have, you do this and then you smash it down. This used to be done by hand using like a stamping tool and a hammer, but thankfully they invented the grooving machine, which made things a heck of a lot easier. Anyway, I will show you how to use the brake or the bar folder is another word for it, in terms of tin or copperware sheet metal working, and then I'll show you how the seam was set down both using the grooving machine as well as what the seam setting hand tool looks like, even though I won't need to use it. So without much further ado, here is the prep work that you need to do to have a crimp seam along the sides of your piece. All right, so this is my really crappy rolling job on a really crappy piece of leftover tin scrap, but I wanted to show you. And it's easier to do it once it's been rolled, but rollers, yay, everyone, it's a roller, rolls. Okay, so to prepare for crimp seam, not cramp and not lap, the L, N, and P, crimp seam, you have one side which has been cut. So, and this up here, this is your your top, and this depth is going to change depending on the gauge of wire that you use for your upper lip or rim. So it's really hard for me to give you measurements on this because it's totally going to depend on if you use iron or steel or copper and how thick it is. But essentially you have the upper corner, which is going to be both deep in terms of width and height. Across from that, it's going to match in depth because it's going to have to match that wire gauge, but you have a much thinner width to handle the crimping you're going to do. Down here, you have probably about, the typical is about an 1/8 inch burr in order to create a crimp seam along the bottom to take the round base that you'll be attaching to the cylinder, because we're pretending we're making a big cup. This is going to be usually, let's say it's an 1/8 inch burr. Usually we cut this like an 1/8 by an 1/8. It's real easy. This is going to match that 1/8 inch height, but the depth is going to match up here in order to take the fold of the other side of the crimp seam. So I know it's kind of hard to explain. That's the best I can do, and then I'm going to show you a visual now on how that all fits together and then put it through the grooving machine. Okay, we're back. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put first and foremost the deeper end into the bar folder. William, say hi.
Hi.
William is my 8-year-old and he is doing the videoing. And hopefully this won't slide out. But you're going to bend it around so that it creates the start of a bend. Then you have to adjust this to a generous 1/8 of an inch, and you're going to bend it in such a way that it curls underneath. So you go in the opposite. And my bar folder likes to be tricky. Here we go. And we're going to bring it around. What we've essentially created, and it wasn't perfect, but we're going to bend these two into each other on the grooving machine. Okay, so this is the grooving machine. It is a massive piece of iron. The crank is meant to go all the way here, so that's as tight as it'll ever be, but you do need almost this much space, especially if you're going to have a larger piece. You can usually interchange the wheel itself out for different widths, but what we're going to do now is we're going to set this seam. So your bar folder, and you'll learn how to adjust it, and you're going to want this, and it's okay if it's not perfectly round, but you're going to be setting down that seam into a crimp seam without having to do 100 hammer strokes. Hey Will, can you come here? I need you to show this. So Will's gonna come around. What you're gonna do is you're going to get this seam on the very inside of the lip. All right, here we go. What you wanna do is make sure it stays completely perpendicular on this level part right here, and you want the wheel to make the groove. Now, the first time through is gonna be a little tricky, but the other part you're going to wanna do is not go past the end. You're gonna put this back in and redo it, because if you go past it, it can slip and you can actually mess up your end. So you're gonna go almost to the end, just when you feel it kind of start to give way, and then back it up again. Put it back on, opposite. Now you're gonna line up the groove with the other side of the wheel, and you're going to kind of go back over. And again, don't go all the way off. And there is a nice, tight, solid crimp seam. If you can look all the way through, see how flat it is. And it's nice and even there. All right, I'm just gonna quick show you guys what you would have done in the old days. You would have put your piece all prepped to go on a tinner's anvil. You would have had your seam up, and you would have taken a particular, these all come in various different ways, widths. So you have your seam setter, is what this is called, and you would have set it on your seam, and you would have pounded it bit by bit by bit by bit all the way down. I'm not going to do it now because it's actually too big for this seam and it's going to crease on the edges, but that's how you would do it. Now, something that Bob taught me how to do, once you've put it through the grooving machine, you see how the edges are actually sitting up just a little bit? What you're going to do is you can take the same seam setter and you kind of put it right on the edge like this. So it's just kind of sitting there, and give it a nice little whack and start setting that down. You might have to do it a few times. And then you do it on the other end. And all you're doing is kind of, those edges are where you can have some trouble. And they just kind of help smooth it down and make the wiring and the burring that you're gonna be doing later much easier for you. So there is your bar folder and your grooving machine. Thanks for watching.